And joining us now from Boulder, Colorado, Republican presidential contender, Senator Marco Rubio. So as we reported last night, violent crime, murders, homicides, rapes going up in the 35 largest cities in this country. Why do you think that is?
Well, that's a great question. It isn't because of laws per se. It's illegal to do these things already. We have a societal issue in America that's very serious. The most important institution in society is the family. And when the family breaks down and values aren't being taught, the result is going to be expressed both economically and through these circumstances that you're highlighting. And until we're honest about the fact that we have some significant societal breakdown in this country and family breakdown in this country, we can't begin to address it. And of course, government is limited in what it can do about this. But if we have a president and we have leaders that are willing to tell us not to overeat because it causes diabetes and not to smoke because it causes cancer, we also need political leaders and people with a bully pulpit to be willing to tell us that at the end of the day, it's what happens in our homes and our communities and what our kids are not learning from strong families.
Yeah, I mean, that message certainly is muted in this age of fractured families and anything goes families. But there might be another component here. In a city like New York, Los Angeles, community policing drove violent crime down. All right, here in New York, they elected an uber-liberal mayor who immediately insulted the police. And the police really do not like this man, de Blasio. So the violent crime has been inching up despite a good police commissioner in Bill Bratton. President Obama has been perceived as being on the side of the anti-police. Maybe it's unfair, but he hasn't condemned Black Lives Matter. And they're the leaders now of the demonizing police movement. Hasn't condemned them, all right, and really hasn't been aggressively on the side of the police in the situations like Ferguson and other controversial things. Right. So how much responsibility does he bear in this, in your opinion, Senator?
Well, look, there's a legitimate issue in this country with especially young African-American males, but minority communities in general that feel like they're targeted or they have a bad relationship with local law enforcement. But there's another issue at play here, and that is the overwhelming and vast majority of law enforcement officers in this country are just trying to do their jobs. They're the only thing standing between my family and danger. They're the first people we call when we get in trouble. And it is troubling that there are groups and rhetoric out there now that is encouraging people to demonize law enforcement, to target law enforcement, or in some cases, quite frankly, to misrepresent what law enforcement is trying to do in our communities.
What role does President Obama play in that?
It demoralizes.
What role does President Obama play in that?
Well, I think it's unfortunate. I think it's unfortunate that the White House does not acknowledge that enough. For example, we've had a number of police deaths here in the last few weeks. It hasn't received nearly as much attention from this White House or, quite frankly, from the media that some of the civilian shootings have received. And some of the civilian shootings, they raise strong questions about whether the police individual involved in that case did the right thing. There's no doubt. But what about the men and women in uniform across this country that are the thin blue line between us? Danger, they're losing their lives too.
Sure,
5
days ago,
paid to that.
A black New York City cop was shot, and then Quentin Tarantino shows up from Hollywood and calls all the cops murderers. So we have an atmosphere now in this country that it's open season rhetorically on the police. Now let's switch off to.
And again, I'm sorry, I would say this is anecdotal, but it's true. I have a number of friends in law enforcement I've interacted with in the last few weeks that do express the sentiment that there's now a hostile environment towards them.
I know the cops pretty well, and they are inhibited is a minor word. They are really cautious about what they do now. Now, big debate tomorrow night in Boulder, Colorado. You're already out there. Unfortunately, you guys are going to be up against the World Series. So everybody's going to have to watch The Factor at 11 Eastern Time tomorrow night live, and we'll, of course, have the highlights and everything. But my question to you is how do you prepare for something like this? Do you rehearse answers? Do you go over with your advisors policy answers? Is that what you do?
Well, you know, we're out there every single day on the campaign. We're answering questions of voters, so it helps a lot. That's real preparation in the real world in real time. I do think you want to be up to date on what's been in the news lately. If some issues come up that you think might come up during the debate, you want to be prepared to answer that. But by and large, what's made it easier for us, not easy, but easier, is I know what I believe in. We have a well-structured, well-outlined policy document, both foreign policy, domestic policy we've talked about extensively. And so when you have clear ideas about the issues before our country, I think it helps a lot in that preparation.
Yeah,
but I think
you're
the
good
main
at
thing
it.
we do is just be up to date on the.
You're glib. You're good at it.
Ahead,
you know, better than most. Tomorrow's going to be economics. But I was wondering, like Ronald Reagan brought in a couple of good lines when he, told Mondale, "I'm not going to let my opponent's youth and inexperience you know, I'm not going to exploit it, and then he, you know, there you go again. And all the rehearsed lines, those were lines that he brought in. None of you guys have done that yet. And I'm wondering whether you have a line you're going to drop on Trump or Carson or anybody. You got anything? You don't have to tell me. I'm just wondering if you have. No? You're not going to do that?
No, but, you know, when you have 11 people or 10 people on a stage, it's a very different kind of debate than when you're one-on-one or one-on-three. It's very, very different.
It is. It's and after this debate, though, I expect some people will start to winnow out, Senator, and then it will become more intense.
We'll see.
We appreciate you having you coming on in. Thank you.
Thank you.